Nearly 2,000 years ago, our Creator sent a Messiah to tell us that if we want to enter into His kingdom, that we have to follow in this Messiah's footsteps. This Messiah was His only begotten Son. He set up an atoning sacrifice through His Son so that we could return to Him and enter into a renewed covenant with Him to become His set-apart people. Shortly after our Elohim set up this substitution sacrifice, Satan was allowed to set up the abomination of desolation, Saul of Tarsus, and the religion of Christianity. Saul said to follow in his footsteps, and those of you in Christianity do follow him instead of following in the footsteps of the Messiah that was sent to us. The mother whore of Babylon put Saul's teachings alongside of our Elohim's word that he gave to us to set us apart to become as he is. This was all allowed to happen and even purposed to happen by our Elohim's design in order to finish building the first fruits of his family. It was even prophesied to happen. Our Creator put Satan and the demons here for a purpose. They were placed here to represent and to promote that which opposes our Elohim's righteousness and opposes his righteous judgments. They are here to do this as part of the molding and the fashioning of those who have enrolled into Yahweh Elohim's school to become as he is. He placed them here in order to test us and to prove us whether we will love his true character or whether we will love and desire a different image of him. The bottom line is desiring or being in love with a different image of him is committing whoredom to him. It is adultery to him. His word testifies to this. His third commandment says in Exodus 27, "You shall not bear the name Yahweh Elohim falsely or in a desolating way, because Yahweh will not hold him guiltless that bears his name falsely," desolates it. A name is that which identifies the image or the character of that which bears that name. Yahweh's name represents his righteousness because it identifies the one who bears his righteousness. We are commanded to bear his name, which means that we are commanded to bear or to represent his righteousness. And this commandment says that we are to not do so falsely or in a way that desolates it, in a way that changes his image, who he is. The religion of Christianity desolates his name in an extremely magnified way above all other false religions. All of Satan's other false religions desolate our Elohim's righteous character as well, but Christianity goes even further in doing so. You trample his son's shed blood underfoot in order to justify your rebellion to his righteousness that his name represents. You use the atoning sacrifice that he set up for us through his son to be able to use to return to him through his Torah as a license to transgress against it. He sent his son to bear witness to his word, and his pathway or his Torah is in his word because it is his word. He made his son to be his word in the flesh. This means that his son was also made to be his Torah in the flesh. Yeshua walked in his Father's word. His word is his pathway to his righteousness, to teach us his righteousness. He sent it to perfect those who would choose to walk in it, and we're here to be perfected. Yeshua said so clearly. He commanded us for us to be perfect in the same manner that his Father in heaven is perfect. The whorehouses of Christianity and their false shepherds teach their flocks a different pathway. The good news is they will all soon be destroyed, along with all of you who choose to remain in them or in their abominable doctrines, like they're saved by grace apart from turning from your rebellion to our Elohim's word doctrine. The renewed covenant that you can use Yeshua's blood to enter into requires that you turn from your rebellion to his Father's word. This is what repentance is. The renewed covenant is a contract with Yahweh Elohim where he will write his Torah with his statutes and judgments in your hearts and in your inward parts. It is a contract where he will turn the water that you will need to be baptized under into his son's blood to atone for your rebellion. But you have to sign the contract. Signing the contract is repenting or turning from your rebellion to his word. You're going to have to stop bearing his name falsely and stop desolating it like the abomination of desolation Saul of Tarsus did and taught through his doctrines. Exodus 23 verse 13 says, "In all things that I have said to you, be circumspect, and make no remembrance of the name of other Elohims." In other words, he's saying make no remembrance of other images of him or other identifications of his true character. Neither let them, these names of other images, them, be heard out of your mouth. Do you think that Yahweh Elohim changed? Do you think that he stopped hating homosexuality or adultery or lying or things like this? No, he put these things here for us to learn to loathe them and to learn to love his righteousness. His putting the evil here is part of the testing and proving ground that he set up to build his family. During this first nearly 6,000 years, it has been his purpose to build the 144,000 or the first fruits into his family. This is his temple. Wasn't his purpose to save the world yet, although his son did set up the atonement to offer deliverance through his blood for all who would hearken and repent and turn from their rebellion. And this applies to even into the millennium and even the great white throne and such. But now his temple is complete, and he is planting the seed in the millennium for the latter harvest into his family. If you want to be of this seed, you're going to have to turn from your rebellion to him and to his word. This is why the abomination of desolation has been declared, and why that which was hidden for the building of his temple is now being revealed. He has sent me to restore all things so that you can lay siege to them in order to become part of this planting. Serving and worshiping Yahweh Elohim's true identity is serious business. Cannot serve and worship a false image of him. Just vanity to do so. Meaningless. It is serious business because it is the reason why he gave us life and put us here in the flesh. True worship is living his word with the purpose of living it to be molded and fashioned by it to become as he is. He put us here in the flesh for us to choose to become as he is. Becoming as he is being made in his righteous image or in his righteous character. Here's a summary of the last 3,324 years of Israel's rebellion to him that leads up to the here and the now. It's found in Ezekiel 20. And I brought them, referring to the children of Israel in the first Exodus, I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt and into the wilderness, and I gave to them to know my statutes and my judgments that man should do in order to save his life. I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them in order that they would know that I am Yahweh that purifies them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not walk in my statutes, and they despised my judgments that man should do in order to save his life. And they greatly profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said I would pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness to make riddance of them, but on account of my name, his righteousness, so that it would not be profaned in the sight of the other nations in whose sight I brought them out. I also lifted up my hand to them in the wilderness, provided for them, except that I would not bring them into the land which I was going to give them, the land that flows with milk and honey, which is the splendor of all lands. Because they despised my judgments and did not walk in my statutes, because they profaned my Sabbaths, and they walked following after idolatry in their hearts. Nevertheless, my eye spared from destroying them. Neither did I make a total destruction of them in the wilderness. I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the statutes of your fathers, neither hedge about their judgments, nor defile yourselves with their idolatries. I am Yahweh Elohim, walk in my statutes, he says, and hedge about my judgments, and do them, and make pure or make holy my Sabbaths, and they will be a sign between me and you, so that you will know Yahweh Elohim. But the children of Israel, the children rebelled against me, and they did not walk in my statutes, he said. Neither did they hedge about my judgments that man should do in order to save his life, and they profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said I would pour out my fury and my anger upon them to make riddance of them in the wilderness. He's referring to a second wilderness that he sent them into when he later scattered them to the four corners of the earth. Today, the descendants of Israel are primarily gathered in the English-speaking countries that are buried in the lies of Christianity. A prophecy given through Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 30 proves this. The following verses explain this further. He also explains in verse 25 that he gave your fathers over to worship lies that would not save them when he scattered them, and why he scattered them in verse 24. Verse 22, he says, nevertheless, I did turn back my hand on account of my name, that it would not be profaned in the sight of the other nations in whose sight I brought them forth. I also lifted up my hand to them that I scattered in the wilderness among the other nations when I dispersed them throughout the lands, because they did not because they did not do my judgments, and they despised my statutes, they profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on following after their fathers' idolatries. I also gave them over to the statutes and judgments that were not good and that would not save their lives. He sent them into captivity to Satan's lies. Like I said earlier, he placed Satan here and to set up Saul of Tarsus and his abomination to his word through the whore of Babylon. But he also made an escape plan available for those who would turn from their rebellion to him and would hearken to his word and desire his righteousness. This escape plan includes the substitution sacrifice that he set up through his son. But almost none of you or your fathers would turn from your rebellion to him for these nearly 2,000 years since he sent his son and set him up to be the atonement. Verse 26, and they were defiled in their offerings, and they passed over all that opened the womb. On account of this, I laid them waste so that they will know that I am Yahweh. Of course, it's going to be the latter resurrection as well, at the great white throne and such. It was by his design that he sent Israel into captivity to the lies, but it was because of your rebellion to him that he did so. And it was done as part of the test that those who became the first fruits had, after this time, had to overcome. The reality is you and your fathers did not walk according to his pathway, nor did you teach it to your children. Only the small flock who have come to his call have hearkened to him in spirit and in truth. Now he is getting ready to show the rest of you the shame of your nakedness. He's getting ready to show you the shame of your nakedness so that you will know that he is Yahweh, and to humble 3.33% of you into repentance. It's said to become the planting in the millennium. His righteousness will be exalted in judgment. Those of you who lay siege to his righteousness will be delivered through the coming affliction if you turn from bearing his name falsely and in a desolating way and turn to bearing it in truth. He goes on to say that even though he has done all of these things, most of you continue in your blasphemies to him. Verse 27, he said, after this, Son of Man, speak to the house of Israel and say to them, thus saith Adonai Yahweh, yet you continue in this blaspheme to me as your fathers did, in that they transgressed against me in their sins. When I lifted up my hand and brought them to the land and that I gave to them, but there they saw every high hill and all of the thick trees, and there they offered their offerings, and they gave their offerings there for their sorrow. They made their sweet saviors there and poured out drink offerings there. Then I said to them, what is the high place whereunto you go? And the name thereof is called Bamah to this day. Even after all of the blessings that he gave to you and to your fathers, you continued to play the harlot to him by worshiping vain images of him and profaning his name. Verse 30, therefore say to the house of Israel, thus saith Adonai Yahweh, are you not defiled in the same manner as your fathers? You have committed whoredom, he says, by following after their abominations. When you lift up your offerings, you pass your children through the fire, same as offering them up to Baal. You defile yourselves with all of your idolatries. Even until this day, will I be sought after by you, O house of Israel? As I live, saith Adonai Yahweh, I will not be sought after by you. And that which rises up into your spirit will not be, he says. You will say, we will be as the Gentiles, as the families of the other countries, and you will serve wood and stone, he says. You say that you have his spirit, but it is not so. Your life here in the flesh is of the world and not of his spirit. You live for the here and for the now, and not to become as he is. You worship him in vain with your whoredom to your false images of him. You have rejected living his word that would have caused him to give you his seven spirits to guide you into his righteous image on a spiritual plane. You have refused to be set apart to him to become as he is. Therefore, here's what he says to you in verse 33. As I live, saith Adonai Yahweh, surely with the mighty hand and with the stretched out arm and with my hot indignation poured out I will rain upon you. And I will bring from you a people, and I will gather you out from the countries wherein you are scattered with the mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with hot indignation poured out. And I will come to a people in the wilderness, and there I will judge amongst you face to face, like I judged amongst your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I judge amongst you, saith Adonai Yahweh. They were not allowed to enter in the promised land. What is he going to judge you with? His son told us, with his word. He said that all will be judged with his father's word, by his father's word in the last days. But most of you would rather believe into Saul's lies instead of believing into the writings of the prophets that our Messiah testified to, so that you can give yourselves immunity from this judgment. Your immunity that you have secured in your hearts, you've secured your hearts with, is make-believe, just like the blood from the make-believe image of the Messiah that you say nailed his father's Torah to the cross, that you have put your hopes in, is make-believe blood. Here is what he is getting ready to purpose through the coming affliction. Verse 37, and I will pass you under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Leviticus 27:32 shows that the same words used in this phrase, pass you under the rod, means a tenth or 10%. According to other prophecies found in Ezekiel, this is the 10% of the final third that he will soon gather and deliver into the millennium. This will be the remnant that he will return to Israel in the bond of the renewed covenant through his son's blood. Verse 38, he says, I will purge from among you the rebels that have rebelled against me in the land where you have sojourned, and I will not bring them to come into the land of Israel. And you will know that I am Yahweh. You, house of Israel, everyone that walks following after and serving his idolatry, saith Adonai Yahweh. This is who will not be there. Unless, he says, unless you will hearken to me and no longer profane my pure name with your bribes and with your idolatries. He is saying that unless you turn from your rebellion to his righteousness, you will not be delivered. Your bribes are your offering up to him, your false worship and your flatteries to him, and your tithes and your ties to the false shepherds that work for Satan. Verse 40, because in my holy or my pure mountain, in the high mountain of Israel, saith Adonai Yahweh, there will be all of the house of Israel that serves me. And it's talking about serving him in spirit and in truth in all of the land. And there I will take pleasure in them, and there I will seek your offerings and the first fruits that you lift up with all that is pure. And I will take pleasure in your sweet savors, and when I bring you up, I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries wherein you have been scattered, and I will set you apart before the eyes of the other nations, and you will know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the country that I lifted up my hand to give to your fathers. And there you will remember your ways and all of your doings wherein you had been defiled, and you will loathe all of the evils that you had did before my face. And you will know that I am Yahweh, and that I have done this on account of my name and not on account of the house of Israel's wicked course, their wicked pathway, and your corrupt work, saith Adonai Yahweh. This Saturday, September 29th on Satan's calendar, is the 10th day of the 7th month on our Elohim's restored calendar. It is his commanded day of atonement. We are commanded to begin our affliction the night before at sundown. From the beginning of this day to the end of November 9th is 40 days. He uses the number 40 to pronounce judgment, so I would take this warning seriously and humble yourselves before him and return to him before he humbles you. His word testifies to why he is going to send a double portion of his wrath upon the scattered nations of Israel in the last days. Even these verses here in Ezekiel testify to why. I'll read verse 24 again. Because they did not do my judgments, and they despised my statutes, and they profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on following after their fathers' idolatries. Included in his statutes and judgments is putting a difference between the clean and the unclean. The Torah says that touching the dead makes us unclean. Yahweh's Son testified that all who are not walking on the same pathway that he walked on are like dead people before his and his Father's face. This means that all of you who are not walking in his Father's Torah are like dead people, and since you obviously touch yourselves, you are touching the dead and you are unclean before his face. He is suggesting that you lay siege to what has been revealed about becoming the red heifer, so that the water of separation can be turned into Yeshua's blood, so that your rebellion can be atoned for. Our Creator's high days, like the coming feast and this day of atonement, are commanded days to be set apart, so He is suggesting that you set them apart and cry out to him, that you will turn from your rebellion to him. You might want to use this Day of Atonement to humble yourself before him for trampling his son's blood, shed blood under your feet like you have. The 7-day Feast of Temporary Dwellings begins on October 4th and ends on October 10th. The world is about ready to find out how temporary they really are. The 8th day, High Day, falls on October 11th, and this is day 1 of the 30 days that he will use to bring down the false shepherds and to destroy their whorehouses. He is suggesting that you flee from these whorehouses or be consumed with them. A lot of you do not believe that we are where we are at in time in regards to the day of his vengeance on November 9th. If you would just think about it, it is not about the date of his vengeance anyway. His word is clear as to why he is going to send his wrath. You should have never been rebelling against his word and following a wolf like Saul of Tarsus in the first place. His son said to follow after him, and I do not think that any of you would deny that he lived by his father's Torah. You should be walking in his Torah that his son testified to and even magnified anyway. So in lieu of this, why would a date of his wrath be needed just to get you to turn from your rebellion? Why does he need to heap calamity upon you just to get a small number of you to obey him with the intent to become as he is? I will tell you why. It is because you do not love his true image. You love whoring with your make-believe images of him and his son that you use to justify your rebellion to them. You love your whorehouses. And for many of you, the best whorehouse in the land is simply in your rebellious, uncircumcised hearts. I posted a video a while back on this subject. The good news is your rebellion and your whoredom is about to be squashed. Trampling his son's shed blood underfoot by using it for authority to continue in your harlotry will no longer be allowed. When the dust settles, the whole world will be full of the knowledge of Yahweh Elohim and his righteousness, and truth, including his righteous judgments, will be a way of life. Your whorehouses will be no more, and you will be no more with them if you continue in them. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim.